Hello, and thank you for joining part one of our three-part research webinar series. Let's get started. Okay. Today's presenters are myself, Donna Sarvello, and Doug Nelson, the president of the Massage Therapy Foundation. Hi, Doug. How are you today?
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm great, and I'm really thrilled to have this conversation with you about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. So thanks for doing this.
I am so excited. So we're going to give a little bit about ourselves. I'm Donna Sarvello, a licensed massage therapist and board certified. I am the Vice President of Educational Support with NCBTMB since 2010. I've worked in the massage therapy profession for over 20 years as a massage therapist. I've taught core curriculum, and now I'm with NCB. And Doug, as we were talking about research, I decided to look something up and research something that I would never be interested in just for fun. And I found the longest earthworm grew to 22 feet in South Africa. Now, in other areas of the world, they grow to about 5 to 6 feet, but this was the largest. So, why don't you give us a little bit of information about yourself?
Well, I can't top that. So, oh my gosh. So again, my name is Doug Nelson. I live in Champaign, Illinois. I have a clinic here that I opened in 1982 that has 20 therapists in it. April will be, I think, 42 years for me in the profession. And as a clinician, I mean, I see probably 20-some people a week, 25 people a week, and have done that now for more than 4 decades. I'm also a new cello student, so it's great to do something like that, to be a beginner again, to have that beginner's mind. And I think being a student has made me a better teacher as well. And I think I'm getting better because my wife doesn't close the door as much as she used to, so it's all good. It's all good.
I love that. Who better to have this research webinar with than the president of the Massage Foundation? That is wonderful. Okay, so brief introductions about our organizations. So NCB is a nonprofit organization with the mission statement to define and advance the highest standards within the massage therapy and bodywork profession. We do this through our board certification credential, which is the highest voluntary credential in the profession. We now have specialty certificates in many different areas. We have our approved providers of continuing education who elevate our profession through higher level education after core curriculum. And then we build a relationship with schools across the country through our Science School Code program, where we accept schools, review their information, and then we accept their students for board certification. For more information about all of our programs, please visit www.ncbtmb.org. Doug, why don't you tell us about the Massage Therapy Foundation?
Sure. So we are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1990, and our mission is to advance the knowledge and practice of massage therapy by supporting scientific research, education, and community service. So it's those 3 arenas. In those arenas, for instance, on the scientific research, our job is to fund scientific studies, and since our inception, we funded over $1 million in scientific research in massage therapy. On the education side, it's providing educational resources to people in the profession and beyond, to our other healthcare colleagues and the general public. And on the community service program, we have amazing grants that provide the power and the promise of massage therapy to underserved populations, whether they're veterans or low-income mothers or survivors of trauma. Really cool things of bringing massage to communities that would never normally have access to it. So we also have research conferences every 3 years, the International Massage Therapy Research Conference. And guess what? This is that year. So it's going to happen in Alexandria, Virginia, May 9th and the 10th. So be there or be square. I mean, this is a really, really important conference that only happens every 3 years. It's been really cool, a great lineup of presenters. So, and then we also have grants and contests like case report grants that are really, really cool. For more information, again, look up www.massagetherapyfoundation.org.
Excellent. So, the reason that our organizations are collaborating today are both organizations are deeply committed to advancing standards of the massage therapy profession. And we want to provide therapists like you with additional opportunities to enrich your understanding of research because it's so important to move our profession forward. Over the course of this three-part series, we hope to help you identify why research is important, what research means to our profession and others, what research is, how to find quality research, how to apply the research to your everyday practice. So it's really the why, the what, and the how of research. And I guarantee this webinar will pique your interest in research as we move forward.
And it's really important, Donna. I think it was a great decision to start with the why first, because for every action, you need a compelling reason why you should do this. I think this is a great place to start and a great case to make for that. So very cool.
Excellent. So, Massage Therapy Foundation is giving back to the profession by offering a free CE for joining us through this research journey. And we're going to have all of the details on how to earn this one CE today at the end of this webinar. All of the information will be presented to you, so stay tuned until the end. All right, so Doug, let's dive right in. What is research and why does it matter?
The heart of the matter, isn't it? I mean, that's really the essence of the question that we're exploring today. So in terms of the what, Donna, in many ways, research is formalized curiosity. And I really like to think of it that way. It's about examining the quality of your questions, not just the pursuit of an answer. So in that, I mean, if you look at the things we have on the screen, first, you have to have an idea. And I just want to make this case that all formal ideas that you might read in a research study come somewhere from some informal question. In fact, right now I'm sitting in my office at home and I'm looking at this plaque on the wall that my teaching instructors, my staff gave me. And it's a quote from Isaac Asimov, and it says, "The most exciting phrase to hear in science, one that heralds new discoveries, is not eureka, but gee, that's funny," right? And we all have those moments in our clinic where you think, I wonder why that happened. I wonder why this is true. Or I wonder if this is also. All those things create the quality of the question. That's what the testing is all about. And then you're gathering evidence. You're looking at it in multiple ways. And then you're reviewing, is there anything in the literature? Then you begin testing this idea. And so this whole process, in some ways, is really what we tend to do in the clinic. It's really important. This morning, Donna, I spoke to the University of Illinois Medical School, to their fourth-year medical students. And this is something that they also resonate with. And when I was presenting some of the research in our field, I'm also presenting, some of the questions that we have and some of the areas that we need a lot more explanation. And that certainly resonates with them in a really big way. So in that also, I would make the case in a couple of other aspects of this. One is that this is a way of understanding more deeply the work that we do. It's really in the essence about having a deeper understanding of the kinds of work that we're involved in. Rather than looking for answers, questions are a way of deepening understanding. And to the second point in that way, if you start this process with this idea of, I want to prove that, it's like beginning a question and saying, here's my answer, and I want to make sure I can do everything possible to make my answer true. And that is really not the way that research tends to go about things. We start with a question first, and really the essence of that, Donna, is to try to prove that wrong. So And the same thing happens if I'm in the clinic. I just did this morning with med school students. There was a person who had a problem. It seemed very clear what the answer is, but I also spent some time trying to prove myself wrong. And because I couldn't, it probably says that the reason that the thing I thought was probably true in the first place ended up being true. But I also know what I said yes to, but I also know all the various things that I said no to. And that's a really, really important avenue. Research is a way of learning from the experience of others, and this is something that we will explore as we go through this presentation. And lastly, data to stand on. When I got there this morning, all of those medical students had already gone to the literature and looked up, because they saw, oh my goodness, we're having a massage therapist talk to us this morning. What's up with that? They didn't look me up personally, because they don't honestly, they don't really care, right? It's not about me personally. It's about the profession and what does the literature have to say and why would this be relevant to them? And so I didn't really have to make the case for the efficacy of massage. The data did that. And oh my goodness, think about how important that is.
Absolutely. Doug, I want to acknowledge your second point. This is so important because I've heard so many people say there's research to back up my idea, but I also find research to oppose it. So many times people want to prove something, so they allow the conclusion to lead them to the research rather than allowing the research to lead them to the conclusion. And I want to make sure everybody understands the difference. And when we're doing research, we have an open-ended question.
That's a great point. And, sometimes, and I know people mean this in the nicest way, but sometimes people will say, thank you for doing the work that you do to prove that massage. It's like, it's hard to know what to say, because we're not setting about to, in a way, prove something. We're deeply exploring this thing. And my scientist friends, Donna, they all resonate with this. They don't struggle with some piece of research shows this, and then there's another thing. All of that is just another brick in the wall of knowledge. And it takes a lot of bricks to make a really solid wall. And you can't hang your hat on one particular study or one particular idea, because you can always find something else that refutes it. I know people don't like it because science, in a way, lurches forward a millimeter at a time, but it turns out, Donna, that's a really important thing, because we don't make kind of crazy swings of the pendulum. Everything is just moving forward in a slow but very solid way. I'd much rather have a deeper root system than a big tree with a small root system. And that research is a way of deepening that root system. So we have, when the wind blows, and the wind will always blow, right? We have a deep root system to withstand that.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go over some of the examples of different kinds of research, and we'll explore this more in another webinar. But just as a possibility, remember I said that everything begins with an informal question first. Some therapist in a room saying, gosh, this is really interesting. If you write that up, that becomes a case report. And it's, yes, you're just seeing one person, but it's really, here's why I found this interesting. Here's what I dug around in the literature to kind of create some background information. Here's what I did with this person. Here's what happened, and here's what I learned, and here's what other people might take from that. It's a lovely way to share your experience, and case reports are foundational in a lot of different disciplines, but certainly ours. And then there are observational studies. For instance, is something more true in this than that? Here's one. For people who have chronic low back pain, are they more likely to have restriction in hip range of motion? This is an interesting question. Is their inability to have full movement in their hip one of the sources of back pain? So no treatment is done. We're just saying, is this true? Do people with chronic low back pain tend to have more restricted hip range mobility? The answer to that, by the way, there's a lot of data to support yes. In an interventional study, that's something different, where you're comparing a treatment. So you're doing massage relative to doing nothing at all, to a rest period, or comparing massage to some other treatment modality. And again, now you're intervening and comparing the effectiveness of the intervention, which is, again, really cool. It's a little difficult to do, you know, the classic thing of a randomized double-blind study. It's a little hard to do a double-blind study in massage. No, really, I'm touching you. It's a little tough, you know? But I think, you know, that's one of the things that researchers have learned, you know, for disciplines like ours. How do you adapt those things and still come up with data that you feel really, really good about? And there are some really clever ways to do this. Systematic reviews are, in a way, they're research studies about research studies, where you're looking at a whole bunch of different studies, throwing out the ones that are a little weaker, taking the strongest, and what is the bulk of that evidence presenting toward, which is, again, is a really strong way to do that. And the AMTA, the Samueli Institute and the Massage Therapy Foundation collaborated on funding one of these systematic reviews. I think it's like 3 years ago, and it was fabulous, and it's on our website, something really to explore.
So in a double-blind study where you have to give, where you're testing massage opposed to no massage, would it be safe to put somebody on a table to fall asleep for a while and work on another?
That's an interesting idea. Okay. Okay. I want you have. Okay. So, you know, one point that I want to make is it's something that I feel strongly about, because those of us who've done this for a long time, we know that the massage therapy experience is a really unique experience. There's something really special about that connection we have with people. And that certainly falls to the level of artistry. And one point that I want everybody to take away, Donna, is this idea that embracing the science does not mean to abandon the art. In fact, I would strongly make the case that the science deepens your understanding, and anything that deepens understanding deepens the art. Because the artistry is in the choosing, and the more choices you have, the richer that experience you have, the richer the things you have to choose from, you can actually create things that are truly transformative instead of transactional. And I would go back in some ways. I'm a real aficionado of the Renaissance. I don't know why. I just love that period of time. And it was a time when we were discovering that the world follows some rules, and that there's a way to actually understand the rules and therefore understand the world that we live in. At that time, Donna, people did not see a disparity between science and art. Look at the science that came out of that period, but my goodness, look at the art that came out of the same time. And even if you think of the image of Vitruvian Man, do you remember that image, the Leonardo da Vinci's image? It actually comes from Vitruvius, which was 23 BC, but Leonardo made it visible. And if you remember, there's like a circle and a square. The circle is the infinity, the heavens. The square around the man is the structure. You have to have structure to have infinity. Either one is not, is out of balance. And people in the Renaissance really understood that. And I think for us, we can embrace the science and really use it to enhance the artistry of this. And there's so many mysteries. We do the work every day. Just this morning when I was working on one of the medical school students, I'm pressing, was his infraspinatus that was a problem. As I'm pressing on this, his thing was, oh my gosh, that's tender, right? It is. It's very, it's painful for him. But his qualifier is, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for 3 years for somebody to do that. Right. Really, no one understands how the brain knows hurt from harm. Yes, this is painful. Oh my goodness, this is really helpful. It's one of the innumerable mysteries that we are lucky enough to have our discipline embrace. And what a cool thing. I mean, those mysteries, they're endless, and it's part of the richness of this work.
Fantastic. All right. So our next question, why does massage therapy research matter to other healthcare professionals?
Yeah, and you know, when I hear that statement on and that question, I think right back to the medical school this morning. Again, to have somebody come in like myself and say, you know, what we do is really important, it's really great, and you know, I'm not sure, that's not a very compelling argument, because it's just me saying that. They don't know me from Adam. They just know that their professors asked me to come. But when they went to the literature, when they looked at this, when I used all these references and talked to them in their language, that really engenders a sense of trust. And that's really important. And now we can really have that conversation. We can move to the next thing, which is how can we collaborate together in a complementary way to really serve the public in the best way possible, that honestly neither one of us could do individually as well. And the whole point here is we want to be part of this, the integrative and complementary healthcare system. It's very clear that there are so many people who are in pain, so many people who are stressed, who really need what massage therapy has to offer. But we cannot do this alone. We have to work with other disciplines to truly make that come to fruition. And in a way, as you often hear, we want to have a seat at the table. And as I heard somebody say the other day, we want a seat at the table, but we don't want to be on the menu. You know, the whole point here is that we do have something to contribute, and something that our society really, really needs. And in order to do that, we've got to connect with people. And one of the ways to connect is to speak their language. And guess what? That language is the language of science. And that's why this is really, really important.
You know, I know the foundation has been around since 1990, but I've never seen so many people involved in research as there are today. It's so different from 20 years ago when we blindly followed our instructors, and now we're finding information may have been incorrect. For example, you know, drink a lot of water to remove toxins, or more pressure is better. But through the research that we've done recently, we're finding all these misconceptions. It's a beautiful thing.
And it's good to question. You know, I had an experience, Donna, years ago that was foundational for me, and it was when I was working in the NFL, and the orthopedist watching me treat a player said, "What the heck do you think that's going to do?" He didn't say heck, but I'll be nice. Although it would be a quote. You know, I remember as a Norwegian, I was so offended I almost said something, and that was funny. I don't care. And so,
that was funny.
Okay, so you know, this thing. But later, I realized what really bothered me is that at a deep level, I didn't really know the answer to that question, and it made me question, how do I know what I know? And at that time, much of what I knew were assumptions. You know, people told me it will do this, and I said, okay, this is great. You know, but that guy didn't listen to those people, and he didn't care. But now, years later, we have so much really good evidence. And again, it's evidence, but we have so far to go. There are so many unanswered questions. But how rich is that? I mean, to be in a profession that you could be in for a lifetime and never, ever come to an end is a lovely thing. It keeps you fully engaged.
Absolutely. All right, let's move to the next question. Why does massage therapy research matter to the public?
Yeah, again, so different than our healthcare colleagues, what about the general public? And one thing that is driving this, two things. You know, I just saw something, one of my clients is at the university and was showing me the number of students at any university now who are coming in who are struggling with and or taking medications for anxiety. Does massage therapy have something to offer for anxiety? I would think the case to that is a pretty resounding yes. what's the data on how many people are struggling with pain at any point in time? It's a big, big number. So does massage therapy have something to offer for that? I think the answer again is yes. And there's no greater example of this, Donna, than the opioid crisis. My goodness, one of the studies that I just saw looked at, I think it was 2017, where there's data for this. It's $500 billion. That's the cost to the US economy just in 2017. My goodness, that's a big number that we're spending. Can we as a profession offer something to serve? I think we can. And I think the public is really looking for this in a way that I have never seen in my career. When I am traveling, teaching, whatever, use an Uber or Lyft, and I'll get in the Lyft, and when the driver says, what are you doing, why are you here? And I say massage therapy, that will be the conversation for the rest of the time I'm in the car, and I will get nothing done.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, that's really cool. I see this person, or like, my cousin does it. It's on a plane, I never even bring that up, because if I want to get anything done, it is not going to happen, because the whole conversation will be how much respect they have for this. How that never happened to me 30 years ago. So it's really great. And again, I think one of the reasons, certainly an underpinning, is that data has probably changed that conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it has.
Cool.
All
and
right.
Our time is now. Yeah, I really think our time is now. There's a window of that acceptance that when that door's open, that door doesn't stay open forever. We need to go through this, and we need to mobilize our resources and make this happen now, because that window probably won't be open forever. Now's the time.
And this is the reason. This is the reason why you and I are doing this webinar.
Exactly. You got it.
So these are perfect explanations. Next question: why is massage therapy research important for the practicing therapist?
Mm-hmm. And for all the things I do, honestly, I think of myself first, always and foremost, a clinician. I'm in the office, and we'll finish this webinar. I see my first person at 1:45. So, and I've seen people all afternoon, and then I'm getting on a plane tomorrow, but I'm always seeing people. I get it. I know what it's like to sit across from somebody who's really struggling with something. And what I know, Donna, is that what I used to do is just have a collection of techniques. Now, what's more useful to me is really having a deeper understanding. For instance, if I'm seeing someone who has, foot pain, heel pain, in the past, I have a protocol for plantar fasciitis, but one question would be, are there any other reasons that someone would have foot pain other than plantar fasciitis? Turns out there are many. So what about that? How do I know that this person is presenting with that? The only way that I can go about, for me, treating my clients effectively is to have all these different avenues, all these different possible thoroughfares that I can go through to explore this and compare and contrast, so that I can end up creating a session that is in response to what they need instead of what I think they need, which might be very, very different things. But having that array in terms of the research, goes back to the artistry thing. You still have to make choices. And this is something I talked about with the med school this morning. Data gives you guidelines. It just says these things are guidelines, but guidelines are just guidelines. They're not hard and fast rules. And that's the research generally doesn't give you prescriptive kinds of things. In the end, the wisdom is in the choosing, and the artistry is in the choosing. And also, it's a way to communicate and share knowledge. And that's really, really important. And I think, and we'll explore that a little bit later, but the more we as therapists read and understand the literature, I think it just has this effect of making you think critically about what you do and why you do that. And there is perhaps no greater advantage than that, truthfully.
Perfect. All right. So, next question, Doug. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
All right. So, you've done such a great job explaining all of these details, and it's excellent. What would you say to those still not convinced why research is important?
Yeah, I would go back again to this idea that I just mentioned about shared knowledge. And I'm trying to think of the people I'm seeing this afternoon. Yeah, I can think of somebody I'm seeing at 2:30. And in that person, I remember when she first came to me, I had never seen her particular problem was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And again, I've been practicing for a long time and seeing a lot of people every week, for more than 40 years, and I've still never seen anything quite like that. So how do I respond to that? What do I do? I can either take things that are somewhat like that and extrapolate and try to apply those things and hope for the best. That doesn't feel like the right thing to do. What I did is I just dove into the research literature. Has anybody else out there seen anything that is somewhat close to this? Or even if I'm, diving through the literature, what can possibly help shed some light on what she experiences? Because someone like that will come in with all these random symptoms. What she thinks is random. If I have an organized model of understanding, what they think is random isn't as random as they think. My job is to make sense of it all with a model of understanding. And for Donna, for the life of me, I cannot understand how to do that other than looking through the literature to help me gain that understanding. So
right.
That for me is huge. And it's about in many ways, the power of numbers. Maybe if I've seen one person who has something similar, that's just one person. How do I know this will apply to that? The research is a way of getting much more numbers, and that's when we go to this second thing of again, when people ask me, maybe I'm teaching, Donna, and someone will say, well, do you think this work is helpful for whatever? Well, the thing is, if I've only seen 3 or 4 people who have that condition, I know it disappoints people, but my answer is, I'm not really sure, because I would trust something if I've seen 30, people who have that condition. If I've seen 2 or 3, what does that mean? It doesn't mean a lot, and I'm really careful to not pretend that I know a lot about this. I need to be really cognizant of what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And again, I'll just, because it's in my brain, going back to the medical school, showing them, here's what we're really strong at, and here's where the evidence is really good. Here's some things that are interesting, but it's a weaker thing. When you show that underbelly to other people, people resonate with that. I would also, just as an aside, it's been shown that if you are applying for a job and you are clear about your weaknesses, you are more likely to get hired. And I know this is true. I've asked therapists who've applied to my clinic, and I ask them, so what do you think your weaknesses are? If they can't think of any, I just don't hire them, right? Because, oh my gosh, you should be just as clear, probably clearer about your weaknesses than your strengths. And I think we as a profession need to be clearer about our weaknesses. And when you can identify them, you can actually get better at them.
Right. I would be a little afraid to tell my weaknesses, but I get it completely.
Yeah. And there's something rich about that too, Donna, in that weaknesses, because that sense of vulnerability is probably one of the things that connects us with people and builds that relationship. Okay. Computer, there we go. In all of that's again, once we have greater numbers, now we build a level of accuracy up, and that's really, really important. I know that people will say to me, well, everything is so individualized. How in the world can research, provide us some insights when every treatment is individualized? But think about that. Every discipline is psychotherapy. medicine, everybody's going to say the same thing. When you have a lot of numbers, it washes out some of that. And again, it gives you some framework, some guideline to do. And that's again, why we do this. It's really, really important.
So, you bring up a good point. And, I was just thinking back to when I first graduated. As a new graduate of massage therapy school, I was curious about everything. I'd witnessed medical professionals leave the room and return. So I asked what they were doing. And I asked my chiropractors, my PTs, and my physician, and they told me that they leave the room to gather information about how others have worked with different issues. They don't need to know everything right off the bat, but they do need to know how to find it. And I think that's exactly where we are. We don't have to have all the answers, just like you spoke about, but we need to know where to find the answers.
That's right. That's right. And this is an issue with my, certainly my exposure to the medical school. I mean, these kids are just, I call them kids, but they're just bombarded with all this stuff. You cannot, it's not possible to have all that in your brain. There isn't bandwidth. But what you do need to know is how to access that information when you need it. And why should we be any different, right? We should have the same sort of thing. And again, it's about admitting what you don't know and then knowing how to find out that information. It's very important.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Can I give you another reason?
Yes.
Okay. Things change. Who knew? Over the years, when I think about things that I was taught and was commonly held as practice, like I've been around long enough to remember when bed rest was prescribed for low back pain. That is not what people are doing these days. I think the literature is very clear. The more you can get people up and moving around as quickly as possible, it's far better for the person who struggles with low back pain. And gee, do you think massage can make people more comfortable? And if people are more comfortable, they are more likely to move? I think we can make that case. And so again, this fits right in line with the evidence and how things can be. But the old model was clearly incorrect. If you look at things like, one of the things I saw that in the last couple of years is they injected into the lumbodorsal fascia. I think everybody is aware of how much revelations are coming out in the fascial research. It's still early, but there are some astounding things that are very clinically relevant. And one of them is that if you inject into the lumbodorsal fascia, the spread from that injection, you're injecting an irritant like hypertonic saline, that it has a greater spread of discomfort than if you inject into the deeper muscles. Wow, that is really important and relevant. And in that same research that also talks about, so if what are the qualities if it's more fascial and what are the qualities if it's more muscular? Is that relevant to me as a practicing therapist? Absolutely, I think so. Because not every problem is a fascial problem and not every problem is a muscular problem. It's up to me to understand the differences in the way between those things, and therefore that would change the way I direct my treatment. One of the things that came up in a presentation I did with some dentists a couple of weeks ago is that if I am treating somebody's neck from C3 and up, and I find discomfort almost at every level at C3, C2, and the splenius and the semispinalis, in multiple muscles bilaterally, the problem is usually not coming from the neck. It's not unlikely that the problem is coming from the temporomandibular joint. Is that relevant? Yeah, it's relevant because I could treat that person's neck from now to next November with very minimal results, where if they had treatment that was addressed to the temporomandibular joint, the neck discomfort would disappear. And this gets really interesting because we know that problems C3 and up actually can create like headaches and cephalgia, and also even refer to the temporomandibular joint. So the question is, which direction is this? The research gives us some indications on which way to go. That's enormously important. And this idea of central and peripheral sensitization. So in central sensitization, you have the nervous system that is lit up and overstimulated. And I love this expression that neuroscience people are using now called the noisy brain, that you're just bombarded with all these stimuli. But here's the interesting thing, Donna, when we think of that stimuli, we often think of, emotional things or a brain that just won't, cognitively won't shut up. You're trying to focus on something and all you're thinking about is, oh my God, did I empty the kitty litter this morning? And did I close the garage door? All that kind of stuff. But there's a different kind of noise that comes from your peripheral nervous system, your musculoskeletal system. So all of these little points in your body that are disturbed are actually sending messages up to the brain saying, hey, there's a little problem in zone 37. Each one of them is not that consequential, but the collective sum of them actually has a big effect on the central nervous system. That really wasn't understood years ago. So that's really, really important and changes the way I practice. So things do change, and I think that's an important reason that you want to stay cognizant of the research so that we can serve people better.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned this before, Donna, but the idea that if we start to think like little researchers, my experience in the clinic is it's made me a better practitioner in so many ways. Like, for instance, this idea of proving myself wrong instead of trying to prove myself right. To question, and I know this how do I know what I know? Where did this really come from? All of those things, everything that makes a good researcher makes a good massage therapist, a great massage therapist, and can make a good doctor, a great doctor. These same principles apply no matter what your discipline. And it's really valuable. It's certainly been for me, and I know it has been for other people as well. So I think that's a really, really big benefit. But wait, there's more. It's that idea of gaining a deeper understanding in that process that I just talked about, thinking like a researcher. So, we talked about this before of you have a question, a hypothesis, I wonder if this is true, and then you test it, and then you reassess. Well, did that work? Well, isn't that what we do every day in the clinic? Somebody comes in and says, oh, I can't turn my head to the left as far as I can to the right. And so you think, oh, it's a restriction of the left splenius cervicis. And wow, gee, aren't I great? And then you treat that, and then the restriction doesn't change at all. What you now know is that didn't work. Okay, what else do we have? We do that kind of quote, quote, little r research every day in the clinic. So to do it in a much bigger, more formal way is not that big of a leap in some ways. And I think that we should all resonate with that. And yes, there's more. There's more. And that goes to this idea, if somehow I could snap my fingers and you and I could be transported to this faraway land where it's a different culture, it's a whole different thing. You can clearly see that they are struggling and they have needs that you and I, because we're massage therapists, we could help them, but we don't speak their language. If you and I just sat over in the corner and lamented that, God, these people just don't understand us and they don't understand what we have to bring to them, it's not their job to understand us. It's our job to understand them. It's not their job to learn our language. It's our job to learn their language. And it's that idea of seek first to understand rather than to be understood. So if we really want to play a role in the complementary healthcare system, it's our job to learn the language that everyone else in that system speaks, and that language is the language of science. And what just blows me away, like this morning, when you speak that language and when you share the power and the promise of massage therapy, the reception with that community, with the medical community, with the public, is like something I could have only dreamed of 35 years ago. So it turns out when you speak the same language, people actually understand you and relate to you.
Yes, and they listen.
Yeah, because they have a good reason.
Yeah. All right. So, I love all this information.
Thank you.
But we have another question. And for all of those people out there that just aren't quite there, what would motivate someone to get involved with research?
You know, I think of a friend of mine that I've known for many, many years. Met her when I first came to Champaign, and she is in the psychotherapy realm. She's now 83. She's so fully engaged in her profession and loves it so much. Can't fully retire because it's such a rich part of her life. And we were laughing because I think I'm probably going to be like that. I'm going to be, you know, me in the walker and wow, how are you? And you know, because I can't imagine not doing this. And it's a little selfish because it's so rich for me. I feel like what an honor it is to be fully engaged and to feel like you're making a difference in the lives of other people. And I love this study. This is a study of 11,000 people over a 20-year period, you know, looking at what makes really high-level psychotherapists stay in the field. Healing involvement is certainly at the top of the list, but just underneath it, 96% of them, I think it was, said currently experienced growth, that you are feeling that every day you are learning something and you are deepening your understanding of the thing that you love so much in every session that you have the privilege, you know, to do. And I think the research is another way to deepen that understanding, to make a difference in people's lives. What an amazing process. So that is, I think, a very compelling reason for people. That's been true in other fields. I think it's probably true in ours as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, I know it's a little different shift. I've talked a lot about depth of understanding several times now, but years ago, I would go to a training and it's like, here's a technique for this, here's a technique for that, which is really like saying, here's an answer, and I hope it matches your question. You know, that's probably not the greatest way to go about things. It's a little bit like trying to be a great speaker by reading the dictionary. Having a lot of words will not make you a great speaker. Having something to say will. It's not like having a big vocabulary is not an asset. It's a great asset, but you still have to choose the right word at the right time and for the right reason. And that's the artistry part of it. And so I think now, as we're kind of shifting as a profession, trying to move toward deeper understandings and more critical thinking, the research is fully engaged in that process as well and can help us in that endeavor.
All right. So I am a visual learner. And I like to see finished products and information. Where can I go to look at things others have completed, and what does the end result look like? Sure.
You know, here's one. The International Journal of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork. You know, every profession has hopefully a journal, and we have one as well. But this is an outgrowth. So it's founded by the foundation, and also now we have a partner in the Registered Massage Therapists Association of British Columbia. The RMTBC has been a great partner in the last couple of years, and now together we are providing the profession with a free and open access journal where you can read case reports, you can read research studies. And what I mean by open access, if people aren't familiar, if you've ever, you've done Google Scholar and you find some piece of research and you think, oh, this is really cool. And then when you read the abstract, you start to read more and it says for $37.50, you can purchase that. And then it's like, wait, whoa, I don't know if I even want that. That we as a foundation and the people who have donated to us paid those fees so that all the articles, you can get the complete article without ever have to, paying anything. That's really important, not only for us as a profession, but for anybody else who accesses the journal. And speaking about anybody else, if a physician is looking up massage therapy and Parkinson's disease, it's going to probably take them right to our own journal. And wouldn't we want our own journal reflecting to the world the power and promise of this work? It just makes sense. And to that end, so it's peer reviewed. So, it goes through, articles go through quite the process of review before they get published, because we want really high quality stuff, because this is PubMed and several other indexing systems where, again, any physician, any researcher, or anybody anywhere who's looking at through search engines is going to come up with the IJTMB, which is really, really an asset for our profession. So case reports, research studies, lots of wonderful things there. But I wouldn't also overlook, I've used these in my clinic. So we have visual abstracts, infographics that are up on the Massage Therapy Foundation website. These are like just cut to the chase Cliff Notes things, like this is, I talked about the kind of systematic review. Well, here's an infographic on that study. Here's the problem. Here was the research question. Here were the findings. And this is, the application of this. A really cut to the chase thing. I have printed these, put them on, it's like a rack card. I have them in my clinic. I often see clients in our waiting room just kind of looking at this and going, oh, wow. I don't know that they fully, embrace everything, but what they do is think, oh my goodness, there are deep underpinnings under what these people are doing here, and thoughtfully executed. So I think it reflects well on us, and it's an easy thing to share with other people as well. So, and for practitioners, not so much for the general public, but for practitioners, many of you have maybe attended some conference and they had the research posters up. Well, that's great if you were actually there and you could see them, but it's kind of a one-off. Well, now we have gone back several years and actually put those posters up on the web. So now you can actually print those off and glean the information from those posters. And so I think that's a really, really accessible way to learn something as well, and to learn from other people's experiences.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, as discussed in the beginning of this webinar, Massage Therapy Foundation will be giving a free CE for watching this. How can our viewers earn 1 CE for joining our webinar?
Mm-hmm. So, so we have this link. Donna, you want to tell them more about that, or do you want me to do that?
No, you can, because it's going through the foundation. Yeah.
Okay, great. So if you see the link on the screen here, we will also in the handout you'll get a link with that as well. So don't worry if you're not doing this right here. You will get, if you are connecting with us through the webinar, you will get this link, and then you just complete the form and take the quiz, and then you'll get probably a PDF of your certificate of completion. And again, we really, really appreciate you taking the time to explore this topic with us. It's really, really important, and our hope is that you find it valuable and applicable to your practice.
Yes. All right. So it's question time. To our viewers, this is a time-restricted 1-hour webinar. So if we haven't answered your questions, please contact us for the answers. We're more than willing to talk with you and to work with you and to answer anything you have. So, first question. How does Massage Therapy Foundation affect the massage, or how does Massage Therapy Foundation affect massage industry? And this is from Sherry.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a great question, Sherry, and I would say, I'm going to take one step back. 3 years ago, my wife and I had the privilege of going to Italy, and we were in Florence, and I was looking at the Duomo, this amazing building designed by Brunelleschi, and you're just looking, and it's jaw-dropping. But I'm looking up. The thing is, all that we see has underneath it a root system, a foundation that we cannot see. And in some ways, I think of the foundation, maybe this is just me personally, but I think of the foundation as providing that deep underpinning, that deep root system that allows the profession to branch out. So big branches need deep roots. If we as the foundation can fund, and as I said, we've funded over $1 million in scientific research in that field, all of that information is going out there really to the public, to other healthcare professions, as well as to therapists who love this work. So I really think of it in that way, as providing that base around which we can move from. Certainly, in a smaller way, the community service grants that we've done, think about if, so we're providing massage therapy for people with long-term disabilities. Think about the physicians connected to that particular place. How does that, what do they think about our profession when they see that a foundation in our field is providing this work free of charge to people who probably couldn't afford it and wouldn't have access to it? I think it reflects really, really well on this. So all of those things are ways I think that the Massage Therapy Foundation creates an effect on the profession as a whole.
Excellent answer. All right, next question. Two-part question. Why should I become board certified, and how does being board certified contribute to research? And this is from Charlene. Doug, I think I'm going to take this one. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. Okay. So the first part of the question, any massage therapist that wishes to move beyond entry level should become board certified. You know, as in all professions, a higher certification is a natural progression for a career pathway, and credentials speak to other medical professionals. Board certification does mean something to the medical field, just so you know. When you're looking at doctors and nurses, they always put their credentials behind their name, and it means that they have achieved, and it's all their credentials, they've achieved higher certification, higher degrees. Board certification is no different, and so that's what we're trying to do. Is we're moving into medical, we're working with physicians, we're working with chiropractors and physical therapists, and we want those credentials behind our name to show that we have additional education, can critically think through situations, and know information and how to look stuff up above entry level.
Yeah.
So, second question. How does being board certified contribute to research? Well, I've been thinking about this question, and I want to switch it. I would say research contributes to board certification. So we at NCB, working with our certificants to create certification, we gather research surrounding, desired skills of massage therapists in the medical profession. This information is then translated into exam questions for board certification and also our specialty certificates. NCB depends on research for everything that we're involved with. We don't do anything in a vacuum. Everything that we do comes from research from the outside. So.
Wow, great answer. Great answer. I love flipping that around. That's wonderful.
Thank you, thank you. So, Doug, the next one is from Deanna. I own a massage therapy business and still practice part-time, but I want to learn how I can further contribute to research. How and where can I start?
Certainly one of the ways is to think about potentially doing a case report. I think that's a really accessible way to do that if you actually want to contribute to the research literature. In just supporting the research, I'll just share something that I do in my own clinic, which is that randomly, once a month, we take one client and we tell them, thank you so much, but what you paid today for your session is actually being donated to fund research in our field and provide massage therapy to populations who are underserved and wouldn't have access. It's a really good thing to do, Donna, but it also, honestly, business-wise, reflects really well on my office and my clinic. And it's a way of doing doing well by doing good in the world. And so I think those are two different versions of how you can support us. Support us by contributing to the literature, support us by supporting us financially, and then letting people know that you're doing this so that they know that you are of worthy intentions. It's a very cool thing.
Excellent, excellent. All right, next question is by Anita. How do you feel research will support massage therapy to be recognized by insurance companies?
Yeah, I think if this is my personal opinion, but my personal opinion is if we're going to make that case, the biggest case we're ever going to make is cost effectiveness. And that's what people, certainly the insurance companies, everyone, it's really funny. At the med school this morning, this one of the physicians, who's one of the instructors, was saying that she went in and she was looking at having this procedure done that was perceived as elective, and it was like $8,000. She was like horrified at the cost. And when you look at it, oh my goodness, can we as a massage therapist, can we have a cost-effective way to deal with stress and pain? I think the answer to that is clearly yes, but we can't just say that. We have to have data behind that. And as an earlier slide said, data really changes that conversation, and that's what's going to drive that. It's important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Another question. Can the 1 CE from today's webinar be applied towards my board certification renewal CEs? This is from Michelle, and I'll take this one. Absolutely. We encourage all of our certificants to take or participate in as many classes or projects as possible. So research leads us away from the insanity of doing things over and over only to reach the same exact result. It moves the profession forward. NCB will actually accept 21 of the 24 renewal requirements in research, and then you would just have to get your 3 hours in ethics. So absolutely, as much research as possible.
Wonderful.
All right, and the last question that we can answer, and this one is from Donna Sarvello.
Oh.
Doug, when is the next NCB Massage Therapy Foundation webinar?
Okay. Well, Donna, thank you so much for your question. So today we did really the why. So the what will happen in summer of 19. We haven't locked down that date yet, but it will be this summer. And then in the fall, we'll do kind of the where, how to find quality resources and what that process might look like. So stay tuned. We'll announce those dates pretty soon. As soon as we lock them down, we'll be sending out information to everybody.
Perfect. So that concludes our webinar today. To connect with us for NCB, go to www.ncbtmb.org, or you can call or email our info. For Massage Therapy Foundation, go to www.massagetherapyfoundation.org, or you can visit their info website too, or email. And please visit Massage Therapy Foundation's website. It's so rich with content and information, and most importantly, it's rich with research. Thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure,
and thank you,
Donna.
Doug, for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having this conversation, and I do hope that everybody who's listening found it really valuable and helpful and applicable to their practice. That's our job, and we're just so appreciative of the work that you do. So both you at NCBTMB and all the work you do for the profession, but for each of you therapists out there, you are making a difference in the world, and thank you for the good work that you do. Foundation is proud to support you.
And I can't wait to the next webinar. Yay!
Me too. All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.